If you want to learn to feel English like your first language, there are two major areas to focus on: articles and verb tenses. Let us start with the verb tenses. Language mimics time, and because time, as most of us conceptualize it, is linear, our language is also linear. English speakers have a nuanced understanding of this linear system, which is reflected in the language they speak. In Russian, for example, we see and express our experiences through the prism of the past, present, and future. In English, the system is way more complicated. If you want to learn to feel English like a native speaker does, you'll need to find a way to integrate the English prism of thinking about time into your own thinking. A simple way to do this is to represent the tenses on a timeline. Concept Questions and Timelines by Workman is one such book, which represents tenses graphically, each on its own separate timeline. They look like this. Visual representation is necessary if you want to learn to feel tenses directly, without the mediation of rules from a grammar book. Once you get the vibe of the timelines, I suggest you practice representing prepositions and phrasal verbs in this visual form too. It's very powerful. Now let's return to the articles. Articles help English speakers define nouns. Nouns come in two forms: general and concrete. The rule of thumb is this: whenever a noun is concrete, meaning you can put your finger on it, it calls for an article. Whenever a noun denotes a general thing that you can't really put your finger on, then it's likely that no article is needed. But here is one mistake that I often hear people make. In fact, there are two mistakes. One, overthinking. Somehow, if you've been using English for a while, there'll come a moment when you start intuitively picking your articles. If you start deliberating about it though, you will ruin the show, trust me. Every now and then I observe my students making the right choice in their mind, but nonetheless using a wrong article in speech, only to realize that the one in their mind was the right one. To deal with that, give yourself permission to go with the flow more often, and don't overthink the experience much. And the second mistake, most importantly regarding articles, when we're choosing articles, we make our choice based on our knowledge of the object we're talking about, whereas actually we should make our choice based on our listener's knowledge of the object we're talking about. In other words, if we want to choose the right article, we should get into our listener's head and learn to listen to ourselves with their ears. Imagine what your story sounds like to them. If you use the, for example, and you rationalize it along the lines of, I know this thing I'm talking about, but your listener has no clue as to either this thing or your knowledge of it, then your article choice is erroneous. While you're speaking, practice keeping awareness of what you're saying both from your own and the listener's perspective. I talked more about this hidden truth about articles in my video titled, What No One Tells You About Articles. You see, in order to feel English like a native speaker does, you must inform your mind with native English. And in order to do that, I recommend filling your life with as much English as you can. You do not need to live in an English-speaking country to do just that. If you want proof, I suggest you watch my video titled, You Do Not Have to Live in England to Speak English Like This. Using my personal example, it's absolutely doable. What you have to do is to let your commitment to your authentic self-expression in the English language work its magic. Thanks for watching.